Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome or welcome back. I finally found a book that is able to be participating in the Historathon. I have read a lot of history books throughout the year, but I only recently learned about this tag, so I wanted to participate. And I read Avengers of the New World by Laurent Dubois, probably. Um, and that is about the revolution in Haiti. So it was when they tried to overthrow the French under Napoleon, uh, and basically it was a slave rebellion that tried to get their country independence. I had known about that before. I know that the trouble in Haiti that Napoleon faced uh, was a direct result. A direct result of that allowed the United States to then purchase the Louisiana territory because France wanted to get out of the area and kind of lick their wounds, I guess. So I knew that aspect, but I didn't realize how impactful this moment in history was. So the small island of Haiti was able to uh, the basically, slaves, freed men, and any kind of allies that they had, including some abolitionists, stood up and they defeated not just the French Empire, they held off and defeated the Spanish Empire that was basically they controlled much of the area as well, including nearby Cuba. And they also then later repelled the British Empire, who then wanted to come in and kind of reforce slavery. And they lost so many men, tens of thousands of men, in such a short period of time that it basically made them decide to give up trying to force it, and that's what led them to stop the uh, transatlantic slave movement anyway. Like they just literally were like, oh wow, we can't. It's not worth it anymore. It's not worth it to fight it. So they basically ended it, and we can thank that revolution for that. And in addition, it showed that they had, these empires that could be defeated. These, French and kind of American. We came in afterwards, and we tried to force our will. But the British Empire, the Spanish Empire, and the French Empire, who everybody thought was indestructible, lost to this tiny nation led by a slave revolt. And I found that utterly inspiring and fascinating. And so this takes place late 1700s. And we had, United States had already declared their independence from England. So England was already, losing vast parts of its empire. But up until that point, France and Spain had not. And then this goes directly into Napoleon and them had to retreat to then continue their battle over Europe and everything over there, for their own revolution was already happening. And that kind of played out on Haiti as well, because you had the royalists and then you had the ones who were anti-royalists kind of fighting, and people were switching sides and realizing, why would we fight to keep royalists in power when they're the ones who enslaved us? So they switched sides, and like you had all this really interesting, all these interesting dynamics playing out in the midst of this other world power that was taking shape, because you had, like I said, Napoleon doing his stuff in Europe, but then shortly after, the United States once again flexed its muscles and started the War of 1812, which I don't think would have been a possibility had France not tried to fight on two fronts, and then left to fight mainly just in Europe, and then England being very concerned about Napoleon's spread, that they were now fighting at two fronts and therefore could not defeat America in the War of 1812. So all of this is kind of interconnected. But one thing I think to note, I found it really interesting. It gave a history of the area, and there's another book that I now want to read that shows how that fight directly mirrored kind of like a funhouse mirror, because it was because of what was happening in Haiti. Cuba in the Spanish Empire clung to trying to maintain slavery there, and that affected that island and that development. And just to see how closely those things like refracted and caused this effect on each other and their development as a country is very interesting. So I want a fuller understanding of that aspect. But I had read a book previously that I mentioned before called Debt, and it's about the first 5,000 year history of debt. And in that one, he had mentioned how these third world countries who, not even third world country, these post-colonized countries then were forced to, after they threw the yoke of their oppressors off, were then forced to repay the damages done by their revolution to try to get out of this oppression. These empires made them pay for their freedom, essentially, which then made them become and continue to be developing nations rather than the nations that with the wealth that they should have. And in that book, it did mention Haiti, and how when the United States came in after this debacle, and then tried to say, hey, we'll get you out of this debt that France is now forcing you to pay back, that's when our corrupt banking system took over, lent them money that they would not be able to repay, and now we own them essentially and can control them essentially, and now they owe two countries this wealth that should have been theirs, and how that continues to have this ripple effect, because when you come in and try to say, hey, we're going to get you out of this debt, and then you make them beholden to you on top of this debt, that just continues to ripple throughout history. And this all started, way back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. So when you look at these countries now, whether you're looking at the Caribbean nations, the African nations that no longer were beholden to this, this imprisonment, this colonization, and then the Central and South America, like all these nations that finally dispelled their oppressors, are still expected to pay for their disobedience, essentially. And then we get where we are now with, like, when you read Cobalt Red, or any other ones. One that I'm currently working on but haven't made my way through is How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, is how we're able to then have countries come in and take all the wealth, and whether it's their agriculture, whether it's their minerals, whether it's their just any kind of resource, they're claiming for themselves. Oil, and gold and everything, just because of stuff like this, where, well, in trying to be free from us, you killed so many of our soldiers, and while we were colonizing you, we built you roads and we did this. Never mind that they didn't ask for it, but because they went in there and they wanted to be able to easily access these areas, like when I was talking about the book with the bananas, with the railroads going through Central America or South America, is very similar. You now owe us for the construction of this stuff that we did while we were in possession of you. And it's just amplified their supposed debt that they now owe us, and how we were able to then continuously mine them for all of their resources, to the point that then we have books like the True Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where they mention the CIA involvement with all the coups that overthrew the governments for the countries who then tried to expose or stop that kind of control. So they didn't want to be puppet leaders and continue to let their countries be mined by foreigners. So they tried to say no, and then CIA, different governments would overthrow them, have them assassinated, put their own puppet dictators and stuff in control. And it just, I know that it didn't start in Haiti, but having that be the focus, and then being able to just see how it expands, and how you can apply that to all areas in the globe that are still struggling with the post-colonized atmosphere that all this corruption and control and greed caused them. I like seeing how things are all interconnected, and then you can see how history is alive and well today, and you can see how history just continues to repeat itself, because yes, they're not colonized anymore, but they are still oppressed and not in control of their own resources, and their people are still being killed and everything uselessly for those resources. And so it's just called another name now, but just as hard as that is all to see everywhere, just knowing that this small country of slaves and enslaved people and freed freely or newly freed people were able to defeat 3 empires, gives you hope that history doesn't have to keep repeating itself, that we can continue to educate ourselves, we can continue to see all these through lines, and where they all go back to, and kind of also predict where they'll lead to, but knowing that it is possible for change, that it is possible to stand up against somebody who seems so much more powerful, especially when you have the 3 biggest powers in the world defeated by this one small island. And I definitely really enjoyed this book. I recommend it highly, and I do want to delve deeper into this area, like I was saying, with trying to understand the correlation between that and what was going on in Cuba at the time, and any kind of other through lines that this rabbit hole might take me down. I'm interested in following them. So if anyone has any recommendations for something that leads to this or will lead back to this, that's more recent history, please let me know. I really enjoyed just thinking about all the ways that it was connected, and I just really enjoyed learning more deeply about this time in history that I only knew basically the very superficial aspect of it. And what makes this really important to me is, or at least something that I was deeply interested in, is I had been to Haiti back in 2021, I believe, and then, or 2001, sorry. I was in 2001 in the summer, and, or around there. I can't remember if it was 2001 or 2002, on a trip where a bunch of us went and we helped build an orphanage. And so I went there, and you know, we got to play soccer with the kids, and we got to you know, tour Port-au-Prince, which a lot of the stuff in this story was taken place in and mentioned. And you know, I saw the different statues and stuff about, but and you know, when I was at the Capitol, but I didn't understand this history and the depth of it. I wish that when I had been there, I would have known this more deeply, so that I could have really understood the amazing story behind that place, and just understood the relevance and reverence that capital meant to its people, and to the world in general, as a rallying point that you know, we can do this, we can win. I would love to be able to go back, but I do hold those memories and that time there very close to my heart. So when I was reading this, I just was picturing the parts that I knew and that I remembered, and when they were talking about the area and stuff, and yes, it's been completely basically shelled and hollowed out over the course of that, you know, few hundred years, but there is still so much I guess strength there. I got some really beautiful artwork. I started to try to learn Creole while we were there, and I just really have that place deep in my heart, and reading this made me appreciate those memories even more, but also kind of see them in a new light. I do definitely plan to go back and look at my old pictures and just try to understand a little bit more about that experience and what it meant in the great scheme of history to have been there at that time. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I just recommend this book to you, and I hope that you guys all enjoyed learning a little bit more about how so much is interconnected, and there's a lot of stuff that we can still learn, and that's why I really am enjoying this tag, the Historathon, because you get to start deep in history and work our way more up to the present. And the closer you get to the present, the more you're seeing how much was continuously repeating throughout that time in history. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a happy and exciting time of reading. Thank you. Have a great day.